Greetings, Remnant and online friends. Welcome to the Midweek Refuel, where we seek out the ancient wisdom, simply because modern experts told us that men could get pregnant. And apparently, we were just supposed to nod and say, science, yo. If I look out at this insane world, I notice a deep-seated fragility or insanity that has taken root. Everyone has all the right clothes now, the right stickers, the right tribe, the right slogans plastered all over their life, from Good Life t-shirts to Hydro Flask covered in Be Kind, Live, Laugh, Love, and the ever-present sticker declaring, You are enough, which is funny. Because if there's one thing I'm absolutely certain of in this entire universe, it's this: none of us are enough. With all these slogans and all these happy little stickers to remind us to be happy and be thankful, you'd think that we would actually be, bare minimum, happy and thankful. But somehow we're not. You would think that after paying $42 for a Choose Joy hoodie, joy would come included at the checkout, or at least in the hand warmer. You would think that journaling 3 things I'm grateful for every single morning would produce gratitude sometime before dinner. You would think that wearing a good vibes only hat would prevent you from threatening to speak to the manager because Starbucks spelled your name wrong again. You'd think that with anxiety rings, affirmation apps, guided breathing videos, self-care playlist, mindfulness Mondays at work, and a $19.99 gratitude jar from Home Goods, that people would be floating in serenity like Buddhist jellyfish. But instead, everyone looks like they've been held hostage by their own nervous system since 2015. We are the only culture in all of history where someone can stand in their kitchen next to a $1,200 espresso machine, wearing a blessed sweatshirt, stirring an adaptogenic oat milk latte, journaling affirmations in a $35 notebook, while having a complete and total mental breakdown because the Wi-Fi dropped out for 8 seconds. That's not gratitude. That's called insanity, and it's sold at Target for $24.99. Do you know what was stolen from you? Do you have any clue what has been stolen from you? Better yet, do you know how it was stolen from you? Perhaps it would be enlightening to spell it out, because something has been stolen from you, and not in a vague, poetic, culture is bad sort of way. No, I mean literally stolen from you. Like a spiritual pickpocket slipped his hand into the back pocket of your soul and walked off with the most precious thing you had: your wonder, your ability to gasp, your ability to feel awe, your ability to wake up and feel the miracle of being alive before the coffee even hits, your ability to look at a sunrise without needing to post it on Facebook, your ability to experience existence itself without narrating it, your ability to be grateful before being on brand. That was stolen from you. And you know who the thief was? Not just the devil. He's always been in the business of theft. No, this time the robbery came with notifications, curated feeds, endless scrolling, content over content, algorithm-approved opinions, and a culture that whispers to you 10,000 times a day, you are the center of the universe. But also, nothing matters. Your wonder was stolen from you by a world that distracts you so that you won't notice that you're empty. Your gratitude was stolen by a world that entertains you so you won't notice that you are numb. Your identity was stolen by a world that affirms you so that you won't notice you're lost. You didn't lose your sanity, it was taken away from you. Chesterton tells us exactly how this theft happened. First, they dulled your senses. Then they drowned your wonder. Then they erased your memory. And then they told you to find yourself after they were the ones who helped you forget yourself. They took your sense of amazement and replaced it with overstimulation. They took your gratitude and replaced it with slogans. They took your identity and replaced it with whatever you feel today. It's the greatest bait and switch in human history. And Chesterton says, quote, "Every man has forgotten who he is," unquote. And brother, sister, the modern world depends on you staying that way, because a person who remembers their name is a person who becomes ungovernable, uncontrollable, undeceivable, unintimidated, unconfusable, and unshakable. A person who remembers their name starts asking dangerous questions like, who gave me this life? Why does beauty exist? Why is the world so strange and so wonderful? A person who remembers their name doesn't need stickers, doesn't need mantras, doesn't need slogans or curated calm. They recover something ancient, something that they used to call gratitude. Did you know that your mind has been totally trained to ignore most of what is happening? Partly because God designed your brain that way out of mercy so that you could function inside of this all-full universe, this overflowing with wonder out of every pocket. If you felt the full weight of your existence every second of the day, you wouldn't be able to tie your own shoes without weeping. You wouldn't be able to drive a car without worshiping the Creator. You wouldn't be able to even eat breakfast without falling on your face, because the orange in your hand is a self-contained miracle. So yes, part of the ignoring is God's mercy on us, but part of it is designed by the evil one. Part of it is God protecting you from being overwhelmed by his glory, putting a cloth over your face. But the other part is malicious, because the enemy discovered something. He discovered if he cannot kill you, he can numb you. If he cannot silence you, he'll distract you. If he cannot steal your salvation away from you, well, then he will steal your sense of wonder and awe away from you. Because a Christian without wonder is a Christian asleep. Your mind has been trained, it has been conditioned to filter out the very things that used to make you fall on your knees as a child. The miracle of breath, the miracle of consciousness, the miracle of colors, the miracle of music, the miracle of being alive, the miracle of being itself, the miracle of meaning itself. Your mind has been trained to scroll past the glory. Your mind has been trained to swipe past the miracles. Your soul has been trained not by God, but by the world around you, and it's been trained to make you treat amazement like a luxury instead of a baseline existence. This is why the modern world is utterly and totally exhausted. Your brain is doing the heavy lifting of ignoring reality. And the devil is thrilled by this, because a person who stops noticing the wonder of reality will eventually stop noticing the giver of reality. And that's when the final theft happens. When you no longer see the miracles that are around you, you no longer can feel gratitude for them. When you no longer feel gratitude, you no longer seek after God. Chesterton tells us that every man has forgotten his name, but he also hints at something darker. Every man has been helped to forget it. Helped by the culture, helped by the noise, helped by the overstimulation, helped by the constant stream of triviality that keeps you from noticing the sacred, the pure, the good, the holy. Helped by the enemy. Because a person who cannot feel wonder and awe will never feel worship. A mind that cannot say wow will never say worthy. A heart that cannot be amazed cannot be awakened. Here's the good news. Chesterton is about to bring us into wonder. And wonder is not dead. Wonder's just buried for right now. Gratitude is not gone. It's just muted. And your name is not lost. It's just forgotten. And God, my God, specializes in giving people back their name. When you are born, the entire world is wondrous to you. In 6 short years, you learn to ignore it. But before you ignore it, you absorb it. Do you have any idea how much a child learns in the first 6 years of life? It is completely and utterly staggering. Think first about just language, how hard it is to learn a language. But by 6 years old, the average child has absorbed 10,000 words, mastered the structure of grammar, figured out how tone works, discovered sarcasm, learned emotional nuance, and can tell instantly when a sentence sounds wrong. They do this without textbooks, without teachers, and without tutorials. A child masters more linguistic complexity before kindergarten than our most powerful artificial intelligence systems can achieve with billions of dollars and a warehouse full of servers. That alone should make us fall on our faces and on our knees in wonder and awe. But adults usually don't. Adults just complain that kids today talk funny. Now, think about vision, just the ability to see and to put the reality in front of you together in a way that you can use. A newborn sees only vague shapes, but by age 6, depth perception is precise. Facial recognition is stunningly accurate. Color categories are hardwired. Spatial awareness is mapped. The child's brain has learned to identify hundreds of thousands of objects without ever taking any notes. The face of the mother becomes a sanctuary. And by 6, a child has taken in more visual data than an adult will ever consciously recall. And yet most adults walk straight past sunsets as if they're nothing more than a screensaver. Emotion develops just as dramatically. By 6, a child has learned trust, joy, fear, comfort, belonging, empathy, fairness, forgiveness, sorrow, and delight. The emotional universe of a child is deeper in 6 short years than many adults allow themselves to feel across their entire lives. We call that maturity. And Chesterton calls it something else entirely. Chesterton calls it amnesia. And morality? Let's not miss morality. Morality emerges before education ever touches it. A child already senses right and wrong in their life, fairness and deceit, guilt and repentance, and before the world teaches them what to do with those instincts. The conscience forms before the catechism. Moral hunger is built into the operating system itself. In 6 years, a child constructs an entire universe. Words, color, trust, emotion, justice, beauty, meaning, the very architecture of consciousness. By 6, every tree is a cathedral, every dog is a friend, and every cloud is a question. Every door is a possibility, every star is a sermon. And then the world steps in. What took you 6 years to build can be flattened in 1. That's the real tragedy today. Adults stop seeing because they're trained to stop seeing. Not only by responsibility, but by repetition, distraction, overstimulation, performance, cynicism, productivity obsession, algorithmic hypnosis, cultural gaslighting, emotional sedation, and spiritual anesthesia. A 6-year-old sees glory everywhere. Everything is an adventure. A 36-year-old needs a week in the mountains just to remember that they even have a soul. Your wonder wasn't lost. It was taken from you. It was stolen. Chesterton says every man has forgotten who he is, and modernity helps him forget by drowning him in an ocean of trivialities. A child looks at a butterfly and sees a miracle. An adult looks at a miracle and sees a bug. A child sees a world full of gifts. An adult sees a world full of noise. A child sees wonder. An adult sees content. Here is the hammer blow of truth Chesterton is driving at. You didn't grow out of wonder. You were taught out of wonder. Wonder is your natural state. Gratitude is your birthright. Awe is your orientation. Worship is your trajectory. But the modern world needs you numb so you can be shaped by them. The enemy needs you numb so you won't worship. Your pride needs you numb so you won't surrender. Your distractions need you numb so you won't reflect. A child sees glory and asks, why? An adult sees glory and scrolls by. Chesterton's message is very simple. Recover the eyes of a child and you will recover the memory of your father. Let's turn to the man himself and hear it in his own words. But before we read, I want you to take 2 seconds and hit the like and the subscribe buttons below. You never know. Clicking that little thumbs up icon might be the one tiny nudge that the algorithm needs to drop this lesson into the exact right heart that it needs today. I'm out here throwing theology darts into the digital chaos. Help me hit the target. Your support doesn't just help the channel, although it does, and I thank you for that. It fuels the ministry, and that's the important part. And I appreciate it more than you know. Now, let's listen to Chesterton diagnose the very things we're talking about today. This elementary wonder, however, is not a mere fancy derived from the fairy tales. On the contrary, all the fire of the fairy tales is derived from this. Just as we all like love tales because there is an instinct of sex, we all like astonishing tales because they touch the nerve of the ancient instinct of astonishment. This is proved by the fact that when we are very young, we do not need fairy tales. We only need tales. Mere life is interesting enough. A child of 7 is excited by being told that Tommy opened a door and saw a dragon. But a child of 3 is excited by being told that Tommy opened a door. Boys like romantic tales, but babies like realistic tales because they find them romantic. In fact, a baby is about the only person, I should think, to whom a modern realistic novel could be read without boring him. This proves that even nursery tales only echo an almost prenatal leap of interest and amazement. These tales say that apples were golden, only to refresh the forgotten moment when we found that they were green. They make rivers run with wine, only to make us remember for one wild moment that they run with water. I have said that this is wholly reasonable and even agnostic. And indeed, on this point, I am all for the higher agnosticism. Its better name is ignorance. We have all read in scientific books, and indeed in all romances, the story of a man who has forgotten his name. This man walks about the streets and can see and appreciate everything, only he cannot remember who he is. Well, every man is that man in the story. Every man has forgotten who he is. One may understand the cosmos, but never the ego. The self is more distant than any star. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God, but thou shalt not know thyself. We are all under the same mental calamity. We have all forgotten our names. We have all forgotten what we really are. All that we call common sense and rationality and practicality and positivism only means that for certain dead levels of our life, we forgot that we have forgotten. All that we call spirit and art and ecstasy only means that for one awful instant, we remember that we forgot. But though, like the man without memory in the novel, we walk the streets with a sort of half-witted admiration. Still, it is admiration. It is admiration in English and not only admiration in Latin. The wonder has a positive element of praise. This is the next milestone to be definitely marked on our road through fairyland. I shall speak in the next chapter about optimist and pessimist and their intellectual aspects, so far as they have one. Here I am only trying to describe the enormous emotions which cannot be described, and the strongest emotion was that life was as precious as it was puzzling. It was an ecstasy because it was an adventure. It was an adventure because it was an opportunity. The goodness of the fairy tale was not affected by the fact that there might be more dragons than princesses. It was good to be in a fairy tale. The test of all happiness is gratitude. And I felt grateful, though I hardly knew to whom. Children are grateful when Santa Claus puts in their stockings gifts of toys or sweets. Could I not be grateful to Santa Claus when he put in my stockings the gift of 2 miraculous legs? We thank people for birthday presents of cigars and slippers. Can I thank no one for the birthday present of birth, Christ? When I met him, Christ restored my wonder to me. And I cannot fathom, with my greatest imagination, why anyone would choose anything else in this life. But they do every day. Because here's the truth. Your joy was stolen. Your wonder was stolen. Your purpose was stolen. Your identity was stolen. And the worst part, it was all stolen after God himself planted it in you. Because think about it. For the first 6 years of your life, you lived in a world God himself handcrafted for your awakening. You lived his curriculum. You breathed his classroom. You experienced the liturgy of creation before you ever learned a single doctrine. In those 6 years, God taught you how to grasp, how to marvel, how to delight, how to question, how to laugh, how to trust, how to notice beauty, how to see every single moment as a gift. For 6 years, heaven tutored your soul using trees, colors, faces, rain, food, voices, shadows, water, and sunlight. You were born into divine schooling, a world designed to awaken wonder before your mind could explain anything. And then the world stepped in, and everything God taught you was buried under busyness, cynicism, distraction, and worst of all, sin. But here's the miracle. When you come to Jesus Christ, he doesn't just forgive you, he re-enrolls you. He restores the classroom of wonder. He restarts the awesomeness of the task. He brings back the childlikeness that you lost, and then he deepens it beyond what a child could ever know. Jesus doesn't just give you the first 6 years over again, he gives you the meaning behind the first 6 years. A child sees beauty. A Christian knows the artist. A child marvels at creation. A Christian knows the Creator. A child sees a miracle. A Christian knows the miracle worker. A child asks, why? A Christian hears the Father say, because I love you. This is why I cannot understand why people cling to the counterfeits of this world. Jesus didn't give me comfort. He didn't give me indulgence or the soft illusions that the world calls happiness. He didn't give me hedonistic trivialities. He gave me something infinitely better. He gave me life. He gave me purpose. He gave me adventure. He gave me joy. He restored the child in me, and then he matured that child into a worshiper, into a son, into a disciple, into a man reborn. Everything. And I mean everything. From quantum physics to waffle cones become astonishing again in the light of Jesus Christ. Because the Christian life is not easy and it is not comfortable, but it is the only life where the world becomes a cathedral, where your soul becomes a child again, and where your name, your real name, is spoken back into your real heart. Christ restored my wonder. Christ restored my purpose. Christ restored my name. Christ restored me. And so I say this not as a slogan, not as a sentiment, not as a bumper sticker, but as a confession of cosmic reality. Christ is King. Hail to the King. The King who makes children out of cynics, the King who wakes the dead-hearted, the King who opens blind eyes to glory again, the King who restores what the world stole from you, the King who calls you by the name you forgot, the King who rules galaxies, yet bends low enough to lift you up to see it. Christ is King. Hail to the King.